Hey, this is Paul, and today we're going to do a farm tour. I grow over 300 varieties of dragon fruit, so strap in and let's share some of these amazing plants. So let's start down here. Down here I have some of my own seedlings, and this one is actually an Asunta 2 seedling that I got from my friend James. And I'm growing 4 in the series, and they're all very different. And I'll show you one in a bit. I think it's variegated, so I'm really excited. Now this one's very vigorous. I degrafted it. And I also have another seedling here I'm evaluating that's a Maria Fucsia seedling. So I have 2 seedlings in here, and this pot's special because Vermistera gave us the product in here, and it's 50% worm castings and 50% chunky coconut core. That's it. So 2 ingredients in this potting soil. It's been over a year, and you can see these plants are really happy.
You should probably explain what variegated means.
Oh, variegated is where it's actually, it's not good in the plant world because it lacks chlorophyll, and so that's where the plants are very yellow. So we have one right down there, I'll show you in a few minutes, that is very interesting. So it's very yellowish. And there's a few different varieties. There's a variegated undatus and a few others out there, lime worth they call it. And the branches are super yellow, or they're marbled with green and yellow. Really, really pretty, although it's not a trait that you really want unless it's more ornamental, not for like commercial purposes, but very pretty. Now this one here is Orahona XJ8, a seedling I'm evaluating. I grew 8 of them, and I think I took out 1 or 2, but this one's very vigorous. And I actually gave a piece of the plant material a few years ago to my friend Peps, a trusted grower, and he actually got the fruit before me, which is awesome. I'm happy he did. He enjoyed it. It was a dark red, dark magenta color. So really interesting. He said it was a keeper. So he enjoyed it, and we really believe that this is an improvement over the parent plant, because that's what you need to do with hybrids. And Orahona is notorious for kind of rotting, and it's a bit sensitive, especially cold sensitive in my experience. So this one grows 100 times better, and it sat out here all last winter in the cold weather, and it's just topping the trellis, doing great. So I don't recommend it, but I am growing 2 varieties per pot because we have so many varieties. Ideally, you stick 1 variety per pot so you don't get them confused, unless you're just enjoying the fruit. But if you do grow different varieties in the same pot, I recommend growing very different ones. You can see this is an Ocamponus, very different traits than this Polyrhizis hybrid. But ideally, again, I would prefer to do 1 variety per pot if I could, but it's just not economically feasible for me at this time. Now this one is really special to me. This was Paul Thompson's Ocamponus, and I got it from my friend, the late Leo Manuel, and it's actually finally fruiting here, or flowering for the first time. So it's got its first bud. Ocamponus tend to be kind of low producers for fruit, but they're very, very hardy plants, as you can see, and very spiny, and not my favorite to eat personally. Now this one is another plant. This is a Guatemalan, and it was a mislabeled one from my friend Leo, and the fruit's delicious, but it's a mislabeled plant, so that's a no ID. Over here, I'm growing, let's see, a few different Cosmic Charlies. So I have Leo Manuel's Cosmic Charlie, I have Spicy Exotics Cosmic Charlie, and I also have, on this side, let's see, another one from Matt's Landscape. So this is just my Cosmic Charlie pot, I should say, and this is 2S. Paul Thompson's 2S was renamed Cosmic Charlie. It's a delicious fruit. Now here is Tony Pachenko's TP66, a pink-fleshed variety, grows really well. And in sharing with it, there's an Ocamponus in here, and I believe this one is my white flower Ocamponus. And it hasn't produced yet, but it's been really, really growing out really well, no problems. And this one is shorter spines and much different than the spinier Ocamponus that you saw. So hopefully this one will taste good. The fruit tends to be a bit more dense, a bit more like a sweet beet in my opinion, but if you freeze it, it tastes like sorbet. This one is probably the prettiest Ocamponus in the collection. This is Kennerson's Ocamponus, and it grows out really, really red. I haven't had a fruit yet, but you can see it gets really large and it's really vigorous. Well, this one came from our friend Robert Beltran. So hopefully you saw Eden East, that was a farm tour, and he actually knew Kennerson, and he brought this up from Mexico. So it's a rare one. It's really different than the other Ocamponus, really pretty plant. And on this side, I have the original 1S, which is Paul Thompson's Physical Graffiti. So this is what I got from Leo Manuel, and I'm excited to see, well, is this 1S gonna grow the same as Physical Graffiti? And so far, it's topped the trellis. And if you look over here, check this out, it's a really old plant. So you can see that these came from Leo Manuel, and he got them from his friend Paul Thompson. And Leo Manuel actually wrote Paul Thompson's book. They collaborated on it. So I'm excited to see if this one hopefully will fruit this season. But you can see it's really dark green, really vigorous, really happy. Over here, we have the Elk Creek Physical Graffiti, the Elk Creek PG. So I'm evaluating, is that the same as 1S? I also have Rosa in here. And I thought I had Leo's Physical Graffiti as well. So Leo Manuel had 1S and he had a Physical Graffiti. So I'm evaluating to see, are these all the same? So far, they look very similar. This one is probably one of my favorite. I think it's great for commercial purposes, but they're not all the same. This is Donovan's Laverne Red. So Laverne Red, there's different ones, but this one came from Donovan Vasta, and he gave it to me in 2019. It grows a fruit up to 3 pounds, so really large fruit. You can see it does abort some buds. I think this is related to that heavy rainstorm we had, because I've lost a lot of buds this week. Now on this side, come look at this one. This one's really pretty. This is the Thai Royal Blood Dragon. So I have the Thai Royal Blood Dragon in here. It's first flower bud right there. And then it's got a really nice flush coming in here. So I've never eaten this one. It's a really dark red flesh. My friend Peps has had it, he likes it, and I'm excited to see how it does. It's actually not very cold tolerant though. This one has some problems in the winter. Now, I should mention these guys, I'm not gonna go into detail, but you can see that Leo Manuel had quite a few of his Selenocereus megalanthus crossed with his Hylocereus costorocensis. And he has so many pots, I have some unknowns here, but I had him down to QRS. So around 20 pots, I have some in the trellises. And look at this, I haven't even looked at these for a while, and it's got some flower buds. But not all of Leo's dragons and these hybrids are the same. There are some very unique ones. So what I am doing is protecting them with this burlap, and then they get some afternoon shade from my neighbor's fig tree. And they're really bouncing back. They were really sick last year, but they're doing great now. So I've learned last year that moving really old plants, they stress out and they think they're dying. So they'll kick in and do a huge flush of flower buds. And if you look in here, look at how unique this one is. It's very different from the others. And believe it or not, these plants, Scott, they were hybridized in 2005.
Oh, wow.
So all of these were labeled 11-2005. And so I'm gonna evaluate the best one. And before Leo Manuel passed, he told me what he wanted done with these and how I should name them. So I'm gonna absolutely pick maybe the best 2 out of this series and share those in the future. So, and that's just part of them. I have more, you'll see them. Now this one is prolific. Hopefully you got to see. This is what I called a mega bloom. And this is Mr. Wu. And Mr. Wu has about 30 fruit that's set. And if you look here, I'm actually experimenting. I'll tell you about it soon. I'm experimenting with a foliar spray that's actually a fertilizer, and I'm using it to kill aphids. We're having a really bad aphid problem this season. So I sprayed that this morning, and I'm gonna see how it works. We'll tell you more about that in the future. But that one's Mr. Wu, and I also have a hidden Ocamponus albino in here, if you see it. And I believe it set fruit here. I had a flower here the other day. And this one's a little bit more cold sensitive than the other Ocamponus. It rotted quite a bit, but it's bouncing back, and it set fruit on the stem. Now here is an unknown one. I've traveled and got to enjoy my friend's farm at Elk Creek Dragon Fruit, and I have several no IDs from there that I found. And this one is a prolific plant, really heavy producer. I haven't shared it yet. It's very similar to what I would call Maria Fucsia, but it does get a little bit of pathogens. So that's a drawback, but you can see it's just prolific. It has so many flushes. It's getting flower buds on its stem, as you can see here. And then I also have this really rare, not dragon fruit, but it's a pitaya, I believe, and this came from Tulum, Mexico. So we'll see what happens with that little guy. Here we have Gray Panama, which is another Ocamponus. It's definitely unique, and it's doing well. It did set fruit here. And I also have Maki Super here as well, which is not my favorite variety. I may pull this one, but it's getting a nice flush. Now, check this out. I want to show you this. Hopefully we can see it. I This one had stem rot really bad, and the stem doesn't even function anymore. And what Gray Panama did is it shot out roots through the burlap, and now it's growing great, and it even set fruit. So some people might say, hey, cut this, but on a really mature plant, you could just leave it, and it will shoot out roots that will penetrate into the soil. So I find that really interesting. I just left that all winter. It was almost dead. I scraped off all the rot, and now it's got huge roots shooting out of it.
Nice.
Yeah. So sometimes you just got to let them be, especially if they have a lot of carbohydrates stored. It's a really big cutting. Should do fine. Now this one here is one from Mexico. I got it from my friend Peps, and his father actually grows this. It's an undatus that's very, very vigorous. And so I haven't shared this yet, but you can see it's really put on a nice flush. And look at these flower buds. They're very unique compared to the other undatus that I grow. They're very bulbous. Hopefully you can see that. There we go.
Yeah, shadow's a little.
So really pretty flower
factor.
buds. And you can see it's coming out with another flush. And then this is my very, very special plant here. This is an Asunta 2 seedling, that sister seedling I showed you. And this is the one I believe is variegated.
Oh, because of the yellowing?
Yep, so see the yellowing? And then it starts green, and I've done some videos on this, but the more I evaluate it, the more I believe it's variegated. I took a cutting, it's up there in the hothouse, and it's yellow and variegated as well. Now, here's the same plant from the same branch, and you can see this one's not variegated. So these are the exact same plant, same DNA. And if you look really carefully, you can look at the marbling here. So I've had a few more people look at this, and more of us think that this is definitely variegated. And you can see this is the same plant and same branches, same seedling, but non-variegated with variegated. So really interesting growth. It's been doing this for over 2 years now. So if you really follow our channel, you've seen us when I grafted this, and it's been doing these weird traits for over 2 years. I'm really excited to see what happens. So if this is actually a purple flower, variegated purple flower, I think that would be really cool. So we'll see what happens. Now over here, we have some more dragons, and this one's really special. And on this side, you can see it's Tricia crossed with Hylocereus undatus. I set 2 fruit, and this one came from Edgar Valdivia's collection, really old. I don't believe his plant survived. So Leo Manuel had this, and you could see it wasn't doing so well in shade, so I brought it down here and moved it and kicked it into full sun, and it just bounced back. And I would definitely think it's got some unique traits. You could see I think the undatus kind of took over more than the Tricia DNA. So it's a really unique plant. I'm really excited to see what this fruit's gonna taste like. So undatus and Ocamponus. And on this side, I have something else beautiful here. This is a no ID Guatemalan from my friend Peps, and it's been really prolific. It's similar to American Beauty, and it's doing really well. So just a no ID Guatemalan. I really like Guatemalan varieties. This is San Ignacio, probably my favorite of the series besides Caslao. So it's similar to Lisa, Sabra, and more. But this one tends to do really well. Blooms a little later. So they get started a little later, but they will also have fruit later in the season. So a really delicious red flesh variety. That's San Ignacio. And then on this side is Leo's Connie Meyer. So Leo had a really old Connie Meyer. You can see how old it is down here at the stem.
Oh yeah.
Really.
It's got a lot of barking.
Oh yeah. So it's an old plant doing really well. Set lots of fruit, and it really bounced back. And it's growing in full sun, so it's actually really happy in full sun. Now this one I may pull this season. A lot of growers are actually talking about pulling Tricia. And Tricia's really spiny, and Tricia tastes okay. It's really dense flesh. It's not my favorite variety. And El Grullo is the parent. So Edgar Valdivia hybridized El Grullo with an undatus, I believe, to make Tricia really early on. It's a shy bloomer. It's really spiny. It gets really large. And it's a really pretty flower, but definitely not my favorite to eat.
Basically, it's kind of dangerous, and it's not that good, so it's kind of not worth it.
And it's a low producer. I mean, you can see this is a very large plant. I have 4. I have tissue cultured plant, I have it from Elk Creek, and I have it from Wallace Ranch, and it's all the same, and they all really don't put out too many flowers.
Does it stress in the winter too from the cold? Or
no, this one's overall really hardy. It's just really it does yellow in the sun because it gets so thick.
It's just blah, right?
It's just okay. So if you live in the desert and you really like antioxidant fruits, because the red flesh, it's a red flesh variety, is really good for you. And like I said, some people, I bring this fruit and this is their favorite one. So everybody has different tastes.
It tastes like beets a little bit, right?
It's a sweet beet. The thing I don't like it's really dense. It's a dense texture, and I prefer the more melony, kind of watery fruit. Like something like this. This one's much different. This is Pink Panther. So this is Selenicereus cetaceus, they call it. And it's a heavy producer. This is Pink Panther. I got it from Richard Lee at Grafting Dragon Fruit. And I also have one from Leo Manuel.
Is Pink Panther one of the ones that are like Sugar Dragon?
Yeah, it's similar to Sugar Dragon. The fruit's small, but it's a little bit more pink than magenta. It's a lighter colored flesh.
How's the flavor? As far as
they all taste really pretty much the same. But personally, I like Neon the most because it has the least amount of earthiness at the finish.
I feel like I get the soapiness.
I call it soapiness, but some people say earthy. Yeah. But yeah, it's a little bit of a soapy finish and not so bad on Pink Panther.
Okay.
But I generally like them, and it's not, it depends on the fruit. Sometimes it's a little soapy, sometimes it's not. Now this one is a really old Shayna. I also have Shayna in there, and I got this one from Leo Manuel. It's a Guatemalan, and it prefers a bit more shade. It's kind of sensitive, so I wouldn't say it's the #1 Guatemalan to grow. There's several, but this one, it's a good one. So Shayna. Now here is a really, really big Kathy Von Arum, and I have it from a few sources. I have it from Ricardo and Gilbert and Spicy Exotics. It's got a lot of fruit on it this season. But out of the three sisters, Connie Meyer, Kathy Von Arum, and Bruni, this one's the most sensitive to me. So it tends to get a lot of rot in the heat, and then it's the least cold sensitive. And you can even see this one, I've cut off many branches, but here's what happens. It just kind of rots when it gets around 100. And so if you look here on this branch, rotten. So it's not my favorite of the three, but I'm excited to see how it tastes this season. I haven't eaten it. Now this one here is really special to me because it's really being productive, and they call it Pine Island Purple. I found it in Leo Manuel's collection. It's probably one of Paul Thompson's hybrids. It could be Purple Haze, I'm not sure yet. I'm evaluating it, but you can see it's doing really well. And it does have some slightly unique shaped flowers, so it could even be a seedling. And I'm really interested to see how this one plays out. Pine Island Purple. This one is the Black Dragon, the original Black Dragon, and it's Selenicereus grandiflorus crossed with Hylocereus ocamponus. And we actually picked two fruit, and this one's the third one. I'm leaving it on longer to see if it gets darker in color and to see if it improves the flavor or unimproves the flavor. Now this one does have spines that do not brush off, so be careful with it. They don't brush off easily, and this one's really spiny. On this side I have Danny's Pride of Fallbrook, and this is the one that I believe is the true Pride of Fallbrook. And what it is it looks like a Nicaraguan type variety, but it produces a Guatemalan looking fruit. It's really good, it's a magenta fruit, really unique plant. And this one came out of Nicaragua. So Elk Creek grew it for a while. They got it from Romero Lobo, if the story is accurate. And so this one actually should probably be called the Pride of Nicaragua, if you think about it. But really good plant, the Pride of Fallbrook. Now here we have Leo's Selenicereus cetaceus, which is similar to Sugar Dragon as well. They say it's a little sweeter, and then it does get spines on the fruit.
Look at all those ants.
Yeah, I'm having aphid problems. So I'm spraying them, and these ants are mad. But you can see there's spines on the fruit, so that's a little bit different, but it will be kind of similar to Sugar Dragon. They say that this one's really, really sweet. Now I also have an Asunta 2, and this one is an old mother plant that came from Elk Creek dragon fruit, and I actually cut and pulled the whole mother plant. I bought it from my friend Linda, and so this is her original Asunta. Now she called it Asunta, but people that grew it out called it Asunta 2. So we know that Edgar Valdivia grew a lot of seedlings, so this one may be a version of Asunta 2, we're not quite sure. But either way, it's a special, really sweet plant. And this one is where I got the breeding program for the variegated one and the other ones I've showed you. So believe it or not, this is the mother of this variegated plant here. So I like to keep them close so I can evaluate them. Now this one here is my favorite white flesh fruit. So if you like Undatus, this is my favorite. This is K1, and I got it from Spicy Exotics. Really nice, vigorous growth, big fruit, and it doesn't break down in the heat. And so this is my favorite undatus. I'm actually using it to breed. I have some seedlings with it, K1 undatus.
Why do you like it more than the others?
It's a denser texture. The fruit doesn't break down when it gets hot. It's really pretty. And it's just a different compared to the other undatus I've eaten. And I just really like it. It's a beautiful fruit. So we've done a review on it. Hopefully you could watch it. Now here is Edgar, and they say that this one is the same as red ES1, and so far I would agree to that. You can see it's got a flush on the stem here, and it's a red fleshed one. What I think happened is red ES1 was sent to 3 Lucky Mountains, and they renamed it. So this one they call Edgar. Here is this is Voodoo Child actually, so I have Voodoo Child from Spicy Exotics and from UC Irvine, the UCNR, and you can see it's been really, really productive this season. I just harvested about 30 fruit off of it.
Do you think they look the same from those 2 sources?
So far, yeah, but I'm not getting that single spine on the fruit. I've only gotten 1 on all of these, so I'm not sure about the Voodoo Child thing. This one tastes, I thought I could figure it out, but I'm actually more confused now than ever.
So what they said, the Voodoo Child has a single spine?
On the fruit, some people have that. And then also, I think some people maybe have 7S as Voodoo Child, which I'll show you in a minute. But they taste so similar. So Voodoo Child, Sugar Dragon, I can't really detect much of a difference at this time. Maybe in another season or as I eat more fruit, I'll know. On this side is a really cool one. This is that one they call Ocamponus poblano. So it's another Ocamponus crossed with an undatus, and it looks very much like an undatus, which is white flesh. Hasn't fruited for me. This one people say is really good.
Bless you.
Now, here's one that I got from Fallbrook. It was labeled 8S, so it's a Sugar Dragon, so I just call it Fallbrook 8S. And then here's another one I really like. It hasn't fruited for me, but it's been growing well, and it's called Total Eclipse. And a few people found it long ago at Elk Creek Dragon Fruit, and I found the label on it 2 years ago. It's topping the trellis, so hopefully this one will taste as good as people say it does. This is Total Eclipse. I like the name too. Now here's Florida Red Sweet. I have it from my friend Danny, and I also have Leo Manuels. And I had a nice conversation with Leo about this plant before he passed away, and he remembered that Paul Thompson grew this one, Florida Red Sweet, and they believed it was really close to G2. So it's a really old plant. I have 1 fruit on it, so we'll see how it tastes.
Let's see that fruit.
But I just remember that Leo was really clear that day, and he said Paul Thompson grew Florida Red Sweet, and it's not Florida Sweet Red, it's Florida Red Sweet. And he had a giant plant, so we cut it out and moved it, and it's bouncing back. And then this one I got from Oceanside Dragon Fruit. I haven't shared it yet, and this one is an Isis seedling that he let me have. And he grew it out, he got a fruit in 1 year, but the fruit is not yellow-skinned, because Isis is a yellow-skinned undatus, but this one ended up being really sweet and red-skinned. So I'm excited to see how it does. It really took off this season, especially with our new fertilizing program. So hopefully next season I'll get a fruit off of it, or maybe later this year. Now this one is Larry Dodson's Self-Fertile. It's from my friend Leo Manuel, and I did talk to Larry Dodson, and he said he got, if he remembers correctly, he got this plant from Flores Penton, Guatemala. But it doesn't look like a Guatemalan variety. It looks more like an undatus to me, so rather spiny. And it keeps wanting to grow growth down at the bottom, so I've pruned off hundreds of branches and finally forced it to top the trellis.
Seems really old, huh?
It is really old, so we'll see what happens. Leo Manuel really liked this one, so he said it was good, so I can't wait to try it. Over here is Edgar's Baby, and this one is an Asunta seedling, I think, but with white flower, and it's really delicious. One of my favorite of the Asuntas is Edgar's Baby. And on this side I have one that is from Don Burnett, and it was labeled as something really interesting. Here, check this out. So Don Burnett's Purple Flesh Self-Fertile Guatemalan from Taiwan. So I asked around, and somebody was nice enough to find out that he actually got this off of eBay. So we'll see what happens. I've eaten a fruit off of it. It was good, really good Guatemalan, but nothing more amazing than maybe an American Beauty. But we'll see what happens as this plant matures. Over here I have Jim Neitzel, or it's just called Neitzel, and this one is another really good undatus I like. It definitely tastes really unique, and I like it almost as much as that K1. So Neitzel, really good variety. Sharing the trellis here is, which one is this? This is Santa Barbara Red, and this one came from Leo Manuel's collection. It was almost dead, it's bouncing back, and I haven't had fruit off of it yet, but it's similar to American Beauty. I'm having some problems. It must be really sweet because the ants like to eat the new branches, see that? So I sprayed it with some foliar spray, and it looks like they did not like it. This one here is Nicaraguan Red, and really great Guatemalan. The skin's a little thin. Look at that, here's a ripe fruit so you can see it. I'll eat this later today. So Nicaraguan Red, another magenta-fleshed Guatemalan, delicious fruit. I got this from Spicy Exotics. You can see it's really large. It's been doing great. And sharing its trellis is one of Leo's Megalanthus costarricensis hybrids. This is his pot A. And so I have a few that I'm evaluating, and this one I threw in the pot. It was really large, as you can see, and it's doing great. I ate a fruit off of it last season. It was pretty good. So we'll see. It needs to grow out more before I could give it a proper evaluation. But that one's pretty. All right, let's come around the bamboo here, and now we have some exciting things. So we have Country Roads, which is top the trellis. It gets really thick, but it does get burned in the heat because it's so large. So I kind of had some damage in the heat wave, but it put on some flushes. It also has aborted some of the fruit. So this one, I haven't eaten it yet. I'm really hoping I get to try it this season. Now I also have two Pelora seedlings here. So I actually have a Pelora clone graft. You can see I grafted this from a store-bought fruit, and it was successful, and now it's growing and topping the trellis. And then I grew a seedling and grafted that a few years ago, and I have fruit. Two fruit here, so my first Pelora seedling fruit. So I'm really excited to try those. They're gonna take quite a long time to ripen. They can take up to 6 months, believe it or not. And that's a seedling. So Country Road and two Peloras. This one is Maria Fucsia. Hopefully you've seen us do this review. People are really enjoying this fruit, and this is a plant that I found at Elk Creek Dragon Fruit. And you can see it's a really nice, large magenta fruit, lots of waves, really healthy plant. I like it a lot. This is one of my favorite varieties to eat. I absolutely love it. It is self-sterile though, so you have to cross-pollinate it. Now here is Caslau. Hopefully you saw our video on this. We actually moved this from our friend Danny's house. Scott helped, remember that, Scott?
Yep, and how to move a big dragon fruit, right?
Yep, this one was really large. We actually had our friend also bring a trailer and help move it as well. And it's putting on a really nice flesh here. So this is a red flesh variety. This is probably my favorite of the red flesh. It's similar to Lisa and Sabra and San Ignacio, but this one I just like a little more. Now over here is Jade Red. This one's from Australia. Absolutely probably one of the prettiest purple flowers in my opinion. Really heavy producer, it grows really well, and the fruit tastes like a Guatemalan. So it's not like an Asunta. Even though the flower looks like an Asunta, it tastes much more like a Guatemalan. And then here is my favorite Polyrhizis. Look at how aggressive this thing is and how much fruit I just ate one off of it. And this one is from a rare fruit grower called Jack Skeels, who has passed away sadly. So this one I call Skeels. And I found this at my friend Leo Manuel's house. So Jack Skeels. All right, let's come back here. We have a lot more. Thanks for sticking with us. This is a Haley's Comet from Wallace Ranch, and this one was my favorite fruit that I ate last year. So I had to talk to Neva. I got some cuttings from her, and this one is actually a cool experiment because I'm growing in 100% sand.
Oh yeah.
And so far it's been about 60 days now, and you can see I don't see any problem with vigorous growth. It's really healthy. And I'm top dressing it with fertilizer. And then on this side I actually have an Amarilla Mexicana. So two varieties growing in 100% sand. So far it's been going well. This one is Danny's Double D, I call it so far. It's a seedling, I believe, of Danny's. He said it was a physical graffiti seedling. It hasn't fruited for me yet. It's just been here, I haven't shared it. But right now I just have it as Danny's Dragon. And on this side is a really delicious fruit. Hopefully you've had this one. This is Florida Sweet. It's a pink fleshed variety. And I got this from a friend in Puerto Rico. And you can see it's really unique. So the growth is unique. The flowers are unique, and it's a really light pink, delicious, delicate fruit. I did have some problems growing this out at first. The ants were eating a lot of the branches, as you can see, but now it's really put on it a lot of flushes. This thing is a really heavy producer for the plant material. I mean, I got several fruit off of it this year. It just had a huge flush, but it aborted a bunch of buds, but I like this one a lot. Florida Sweet. Here's my Diego's Desert King seedling, which I got from Richard Lee at Grafting Dragon Fruit. And it's very vigorous. I actually filled the whole pot with this. I removed my Columbiana, my yellow flesh one, because it just didn't do as well. And if you can tell, I think I need to actually give this a little more sunlight. So I'm gonna cut out some of the bamboo when I can, because it's got a lot of vigorous growth here, but no flower buds yet. Although I think I'm seeing one or two here start to form. So this one, last year I got, oh yeah, there's a bunch of flower buds that's budding now. So I did fertilize last week. Now, what I think is so special about this one is the fruit that I ate. It was on the branch for like 6 or 7 months. And I did a review in March on the fruit, and it was delicious. So this is one of the few varieties that can survive our winters with ripe fruit. So Diego's Desert King seedling. This one is a no ID. I call it Del Riego. It came from my next door neighbor, and it's on a street in Encinitas. And to me, it's better than American Beauty. So we've compared them again and again with our family and friends, and everybody always likes this one. Anytime I've let somebody try this fruit, they walked away with a cutting. They said, I want this plant.
How large is it?
It's very similar to American Beauty. I would say the skin's a little bit more like a dark reddish, so it looks a little different. But it does better in the winter, and it's really, really a great plant. It's been really hardy, no problems with cold or heat. You can see it does get a bit of shade here, and it always produces a little later than American Beauty. So I call this No ID Del Riego. And I've shared a lot of cuttings of it because I really think that's a delicious fruit. Now, this one here is a Selenocereus cetaceous. Somebody said it's a white-fleshed one, because there's supposedly a white-fleshed one. I'm getting the first flush on it. And you can see it's a really nice flush over here. Look at this. So hopefully, I'm not sure if it's gonna be the same. I actually have 4 of these Selenocereus cetaceous, and there is supposedly a white-fleshed one, which is what I'm looking for. And on this side, I have Fullerton, which we got at Laguna, with Gary Matsuoka's nursery. And you can see here that it has fruit. So this one is another one, I believe, from Tony Pachenko, very similar to American Beauty. This one's called Fullerton. And it got a little bit damaged over the winter, but it's been really, really an aggressive grower so far. So it's a nice Guatemalan variety. Okay, I did skip one on this row, so let me show you that really quick. Actually, no, I skipped a few. So here is another one. This is Elk Creek Unknown #1. And this one I found at Elk Creek, and it's really aggressive. It puts on huge flushes. And if you come over here, Scott, you can see what I like so much about this plant. It makes these really long bracts on the fruit. See them?
Oh, yeah.
And it's really unique shape. Now, the problem with this one is it has more undatus traits, so it's a really light magenta fruit, and it breaks down in the heat. So I think this one needs to grow in a little less sunlight. You can see it gets a little damaged. So this one is not as sun tolerant as other varieties, but you can see it's just a prolific bloomer. And I really like this fruit. It's Brixed at about 19, 20, and it's got another flush here. It's really aggressive. It's a great plant. I actually gave that to Sun Dragon to try out, so I wanted to see if they like it. Now here's a few of my hybrids. This is another Maria Fucsia seedling. It's growing really thick, really healthy, and I haven't shared this with anyone. We'll see how it does, but I really like this hybrid. The seedling is probably one of my favorite that I've grown so far. I mean, look at how beautiful it is. I just hope it's a good fruit. And on this side is one that's really special to me. If it tastes good, I'm gonna name it the Wallace Ranch Tribute. And this is actually the Wallace Ranch hybrid, a seedling from it that I had a few seeds in my pocket when we got to taste the fruit, and they sprouted, and that's the story with this plant. So we'll see what happens. I have not shared that one with anyone. So that's a Wallace Ranch hybrid seedling that I call the Wallace Ranch Tribute. Now this one I got from a neighbor in the community, and it's an unknown white flesh, and I just stuck it behind this bamboo. This is actually a dragon bamboo, the world's tallest bamboo. Second tallest, some people say. But it's doing really well. I just wanted to see how it would do in this much shade, and it actually is starting to bud. So we'll see what happens with this one. I may not keep it, but it's just hanging around. Now, that's the end of part 1 for this tour, I can already tell. It's been pretty long. So thanks for watching. We appreciate you, and stick around for part 2. It's gonna come out soon.